Rabbi Daniel Leeman, it's really lovely to have you with us. We're looking forward to hearing your Devar Torah very, very shortly. And that's going to happen in a few moments. But quickly, just I want a little bit of your time. This week, Shabbat begins at 4:17. It ends at 5:25. The parasha this week is Yitro. Yisro deals with the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, Har Sinai. That's the main part of the Sedra. And I'm going to talk about that in a few seconds. I just want to tell you that I'm still positive, therefore I will not be in shul this particular week. But I just want to take this opportunity of thanking David Harris, who has so kindly decided that he will stand in for me, for my, not my Kriyat Torah. The Kriyat Torah is being done by Mike Topper, and the davening will be, and the Haftarah is done, but will be done by David Harris. And big shkoyach to you. Thank you, David. Just a little thought about this week's Sedra, and just to get you thinking. If you look at the Sedra, you can spend so much time delving into the intricacies of the revelation of the Torah at Mount Sinai, Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. But I want to just look at the very last pasuk in this week's Sedra, the last verse, and it says the following, because there's a few different smaller commandments that we have after the 10 Commandments, and there's one particular one which is the last one, and seems a seemingly mundane mitzvah, which says the Torah, "V'lo ta'aleh b'ma'alot al mizbechi." You shall not ascend the altar by means of steps, asher lo tigaleh el vatacha alav, in order that your nakedness will not be uncovered upon it. So the simple explanation of this idea is that when you go up to the altar, you should not have steps to ascend. You shouldn't have steps to ascend that altar. The Kohanim used to wear a very long tunic, which was called the me'il, and they used to wear underneath these the little michnasayim, which were short trousers. And if they ascended the altar by means of steps, it would be immodest somehow or other, because it might expose parts that they wouldn't have wanted to be exposed. Therefore, they were told, don't ascend the altar by means of steps, but instead they built a ramp which is called a keves, to go up and down, and this was called the keves. It's a nice explanation, and it fits in very well. However, I believe that, like everything else, there are deeper and esoteric meanings to any aspect of Torah. Indeed, our rabbis called it pardas. Pardas means there are 4 different levels of interpretation. Pardas means is peshat, which is the simple explanation. Remez is the what it alludes to. Durush, which it's deeper, and so which is a secret Kabbalistic aspect of the Torah. And here, I'd like to suggest that there is a deeper aspect to the idea of using a keves to go into the to go up into the mizbeach, onto the mizbeach. And I found this from the writings of the late Lubavitcher Rebbe Zeichet Tzadik V'Kodesh Uvracha, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And he says like this: every Jew should attempt to ascend. When we go up to the altar, we ascend in his Judaism as if we are ascending the altar, as if we are going up the altar. But when we do, be careful. Don't ascend through giant bounds and leaps, but through means of a gentle kavish, of a gentle gentle slope, a ramp. That should be the way in which we should be ascending the altar. Because if you go too hastily and you go on giant steps, you'll end up stumbling. And if you're taking new levels in your Judaism, it has to be done by a gentle slope. In other words, our study, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, we should be studying. We're going from one level to another, but it should be on a gentle slope. And in addition, do it in a way that make you happy. It makes you happy. Because when you're not because you're copying somebody else, not because you're doing what Yenim is doing down the road, but because that fits into who you are and what you are, not what other people want you to be. So your ascent in Judaism, which is symbolized by the keves, by the slope, should be gentle, one step or one small part of that slope at a time. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. Handing over now to you, Rabbi Leeman. Rabbi, not Leeman, Rabbi Leeman. Thank you. There we go. You're on.
Hi, can everybody hear me? You're on mute, so I just have to hope that you can all hear me. I'd like to dedicate this this short Dvar Torah in memory of my father-in-law, Ezra Yisrael ben Yitzhak Tzvi Halevi, whose yortzeit it was a few days yesterday. Okay, towards the beginning, the rabbi spoke about how this week's parsha is basically the 10 Commandments, and that's what he's going to speak about. So I'm not going to tread on his turf. I'm going to speak about something else. In the beginning of the parsha, we see that Moshe had two sons. His sons are mentioned. His sons are named. The first one was called Gershom. It's the very first few verses in the parsha. He had two sons. The first one was called Gershom, and the second one was called Eliezer. Where do we get these names from? Gershom is like the word Gershom. He sojourned over there. And the second name Eliezer is because Elikei Avi Be'ezri, because Hashem helped him. Be'ezri, he helped him and saved him, and saved him from the sword of Paro. These two names are based on the story that we know that Moshe Rabbeinu killed an Egyptian. He was defending a Jew and he killed an Egyptian, and Paro wanted to kill him. And then he ran off to Midian to be saved from Paro. In which case, surely these verses, the names, the two sons of Moshe should have been named the other way around. First of all, Eliezer, because Hashem saved him from the sword of Paro. And second of all, Gershom, because afterwards he ran away to Midian and that's where he lived. So first of all, the naming is in the non-chronological order. The second problematic idea over here is that surely if we were looking at what's more important, surely the firstborn should get the most important name. And surely the idea that Hashem has helped Moshe, Eliezer, is much more important than the fact that he was a sojourner in Midian. What's the big deal? He was a sojourner in Midian. The main thing really is that Hashem helped him. And the final problematic issue, which all of these questions are pointed out by the commentaries, the final issue they point out is that we've already mentioned Gershom and why he was called Gershom. Why do we have to repeat Gershom? So the answer could be that the Torah over here is coming to teach us a very important lesson in the correct behavior. And that's namely that, first of all, we have to know that we're ger. We have to know that we're just visiting. If a person's visiting, he should thank his host. And the next pasuk is about thanking Hashem. First of all, we should thank our host. Now, I don't know if this is really true. If a person has to thank Hashem and the host, I don't know who he has to really thank first. I remember in yeshiva, we had this question. If you've eaten out, who should you thank first? Should you thank your host before Birkas Hamazon, or after, before thanking Hashem or after? It could be we could bring this verse as a proof. It could be. The Chafetz Chaim, we know, used to live in a small city called Radin. And there was once a wealthy businessman who was passing through the area, and he had to see this great Torah leader, this Torah luminary, the Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan HaKohen. So he went to the Chafetz Chaim's house, and he was called into the Chafetz Chaim, and he came and he looked around the room. He couldn't believe it was a small room with a few chairs, a table, very simply furnished, if furnished at all. He could not believe that the Torah leader of the generation was living in such simplicity. And he blurted out the words, "Rabbi, where's all of your things?" And the Chafetz Chaim said, "What do you mean, where's all my things?" He said to the wealthy man, the Chafetz Chaim said to the wealthy man, "Where's all your things?" So the wealthy visitor says, "Rabbi, I don't understand, where's all my things? Why should I bring my things with me? I'm just on the way, I'm just visiting." So the Chafetz Chaim says, "I'm also just visiting." We have to know that when we're in exile, we have to know we're just visiting. It's not our true home. We're also just sojourners. Maybe that's what the Torah is coming to teach us over here, that we should know that we're sojourners. First of all, we should know who we are before we thank Hashem. We should know what we're thanking Hashem for. But perhaps it's a slightly different answer, and this is perhaps what the Chafetz Chaim was alluding to, perhaps a bit more, that in this world, we're all only visitors. Even if we're living, wherever we're living, even if we're living in Israel, even if the Geula comes in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, we have to know that this world, we're just all sojourners. We're only here for a temporary time, be it 70 years, 80 years, 120 years, however long, but it's temporary. So perhaps Moshe named his sons in order to teach us this message. He named his sons these names to pass on this message. This is perhaps the message. This is perhaps the way that we can survive throughout the generations. First, we have to remember that we're just passing through. We're just visitors. This will perhaps lower our connection to this world, lower our connection to be too involved in this world, which will in turn, when one goes up, the other one goes down. This will in turn enable us to get a greater connection to spirituality, greater connection to Hashem. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu first named his son Gershom, because to recognize he was a sojourner, and only then he thanked Hashem. Perhaps it's essential. When we thank Hashem, we'll be able to thank Hashem more if we somewhat minimize our connection to this world, then we can connect much more deeply, much more in a much more complete manner to the world to come, to Hashem, and to the Torah and the mitzvahs. And on that note, I wish you all a good Shabbos.
Lovely, very nice.
Can't hear you, Rabbi. Can't hear you, Rabbi.
Can't hear you.
Rabbi.
You're muted,
Muted, Rabbi.
You're muted.
What?
Can't hear you.
I know. I just want to say thank you so much to Rabbi Leeman for that lovely, lovely, beautiful Devar Torah about the Chafetz Chaim. I heard a similar Devar Torah about the Maggid of Mezrich, but you know, Hasidim, Litvaks, whatever you want to call them, B'nai Torah, they are, you know, we have the same messages coming over all the time, and beautiful message. Goya, thank you very, very much. It's a lovely idea of making that connection with Hashem wherever we are, and truly making that connection. Let's have a look at the Koren NCSY Siddur, which is going to be at our share today. You'll find this, if you want to find the Yedid Nefesh, you'll find this on page 256 in the Chief Rabbi's Siddur. Please join me as
590 in the art scroll.
What page is it?
590 in the art scroll.
Right. 590 in the art scroll. And
But then you go to 308.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, I don't charge.
Okay. Well, you can send me a bill at any time. I don't pay either. You did nefesh avorachamon v'shoy chavdecha eretzoynecha yadu tzavdecha kamo ayal yishtachaveh emu hadavecha Yeravlo Yedidotecha Minofetzu V'chol Toam Adonai Ziv Ha'olam Nafshi Cholas Avosecha Oh no, Elena, Rafana, la, Behado Isla, no, I'm Zivecha, Ostis Chazek, Vestis Rape, Vahayas Allah. Simcha soilom, Fasik Yemuna, Rachamecha, וחוסנה על בינו ובך, כי זה כמה נחשפתי, לראות בספרס עוזך, אלה חמדה ליבי, וחוסנה ויעתי שלום, יגאלנה ופרוס חביבי עלי את סוכת שלום בך, תאירת מכבודך, נגילה ונשמחה בך, מהר לאהוב כי במועד, וחננו כי ימי עולם. Diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie, diddy lie 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 lie. Nine 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 nine. Nine 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 nine. Nine nine ya ya ya. Nine nine ya ya ya. Nine nine ya 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 nine nine nine. Nine nine ya ya ya. Nine nine ya ya ya. Nine 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 nine. Lachuna ranana la doyanai naria letso yishenu nekama fanov vasoyada bismilois narialoi kia gadol Adonai umelech gadol gadol himai shebiot mechikei oretz v'sayafos hamim lo yashelo hayom v'huasahu v'yabek yodav yoto v'yishakalim nicha lifnei Adonai Yoseinu ki Eloheinu v'anachnu amar litzoi v'tzon yado hayom v'kolis yishmau al takshu levavichem ki meriva yom asah b'midbar v'shen yisinah b'sem b'chanuni kama ufa'ali Abim Shana Akot Bado Va'oma Amatoi Levavim Vehim Lo Yadu Delachai Asher Nishbati V'yapi Im Yavayu El Manufasi Shivu Ladonai Shir Chador, Shivu Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shivu Ladonai Baruch Hu Shamoy, Chasu Miyom Yom Yeshua Sasa Putotem Kevoidoi B'Chol Ha'amid Difla Oisav, Ki Gadol Adonai Huno Ma'od, Noru HaKol Elohim Ki Kol Elohim Elim, V'Adonai Shomayim Ohosohit V'Hadon Lefanov, Oiz Siferes B'Mikdasho Havu Ladonai Mishpachos Amim, Havu Ladonai Kavod V'Os Havu Ladonai Kavod Shemo, Sumin Chavol Chatzu Savish Takvu Ladonai Bahavos Kodesh. Kilu mi Pano Kol Haaretz. Imuvakoyim Adonai Malach. Atikon Tebo Batimot. Yadim Amim B'mei Sharim. Yismachu Hashamayim V'Sagel Haaretz. Yiram Hayam Umloyoy. Yaloi Sadai. V'chol Asher Boy. Az Yirananu Kol Hatzeyoah. Lifnei Adonai Kiva, Kiva Lishpo et haaretz. ישפוט תבל בצדק, ועמים באמונו זוי, אדוני מלך תגל הארץ, ישמחו ימבים. ישתחוו גוליהם, שמה ותסנצר ותגר למלכות נאמר משפטך אדוני, כי אתה אדוני עליון על כל הארץ, יד נעליך על כל אלוהים. אוהבי אדוני, צנורה, שומע נפשוס חסידיו, מיד רשעים יצילם. זרוע לצדיק, ולישמעאל ושמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו, מצמושיב לאדוני שחדש. הנה פלאות עשו, אשר לא יאמינו זו קודשו, הודיע אדוני ישועתו. לעיני הגויים כי לא סיכוס עשו חסדו ואמונתו, לבית ישראל חלץ הארץ. עץ ישועתו להינו, הביא לאדוני כל הצפיצות וזמן לזמני בחינו, בכל שמלו. בחצות צבויס וכל השופר, הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ינם היום ולא יוי, תבר ויוש ויבוא, נהל שמחה וכף, יחד הרים יבנינו, לפני אדוני כיוון לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, בימים במישרים, אדוני מלך יקוזו עמים, יושב כלובים צנות הארץ, אדוני בציון גדול. ולמהו הכל אל העמים, יודעים שבחרתם וקורשם, אתן קנתם אישם, משפט תסתכל ביעקב, ואתה עשיסה, רוממו אדוני להמשתק ולנו קודשו, מוישה ויהרון, בחוי המות, ושמואל, בקוירי שמוי, קוירים אל אדוני, והוא ינהל בעמוד ענן, ידבר עליהם, שמרו עדוי סף, וכל כנסם למוי. אדוני אלוהינו אתה אני שם, אל נושא היית להם, ונויקם על עלילוי שם, רוי מבוא. אדוני אלוהינו, השתחוו לקדושו, כי קדוש. אדוני אלוהינו, מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בני עדים, הבו לאדוני, כבוד ועוז לי, הבו לאדוני, כבוד שמו השתחוו לאדוני בהתרס קודש, כל אדוני על המוים, אל הכבוד הרים, אדוני על המים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, לי, כל אדוני בהודו, כל אדוני שווה ארזים, וישמר אדוני את הזהבנם, וילכידם כמו יגל לבנון, וציון כמו בן רעים, לי, כל אדוני כהן לבוסש, כל אדוני יוכל מבא, יוכל אדוני מבא קודש, כל אדוני יוכל ליולות, ויחצוף ירוס, ובהיכלו כולו עומק כבוד, לי, Adonai, lama buya shava yeshev, Adonai, melech liolam, Adonai yos, liyamo yitain, Adonai yevarech, and some of us shall know him, lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lecha Dodi. We can now sing Lecha Dodi by Shlomo Alkovitz. Lecha Dodi likras kala, Penei Shabbos nekabala. Lecha Dodi likras kala, Penei Shabbos nekabala. Together. Shamo v'zocho, v'dibu echad yishmiyanu, elam yuchad Adonai echad, u'shmo yechad, v'shem u'v'sicheres, v'lisila, l'echad l'hikras kala, Penei Shabbos nekabala. Notice these words, Shamo v'zocho v'dibu echad, which means observe and remember in one act of speech. Hishmi anu elam yuchad, the one and only God made us hear. And it's quite interesting, Shama v'zoch, it's this week's center. Zachor et yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Remember the holy days of Shabbat to sanctify it. That's why it says Shama v'zocho, because in the other the other set of the Aseret HaDibrot, it says Shamor. This one it says Shamor. Sorry, this one it says Zachor, and the other one it says Shamor. Zachor means to remember. We remember positively. Shamor means to observe. Observe is the negative aspect of Shabbos. In other words, don't break it. Zachor is the positive aspect. And that's what it's saying. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. It's one act of speech. Hashem did it in one act of speech. It's very interesting. Likrat Shabbos lachu v'nelecha ki b'kol habaracha meirosh mikedem nasucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila lecha doyiti likras kala penei Shabbos nekabala mikdash melech Himalucha komitzayi mitoich haficha rav loch sheves v'yemek habacha v'hu yachamol alayichem loy lechadoyiti likras kala penei Shabbos nekabala hisna'ari meyafako milivshi bigdei Sifatecha mi al yad ben Ishai beis halachi kova el nafshi geyahala hey lechadoyiti likras kala penei Shabbos nekabala his ivory kiva oirech Komi ori, shida baby. Kavod Adonai, alayich tiklal, chagdoidi, likras kala, penei Shabbos nekabala. Customary to change the tune at this time. Loi sevaishi, veloi sikami, ma tishtorchachi oma. Tehemi bo och yechesu ani yami v'nifnesai atila lai 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 lechadoiti likras kala penei Shabbos nekabala lechadoiti likras kala penei Shabbos nekabala together v'hayu limshisa shoyisayich Baruch HaKukol, Mevalayich, Yosin Salayich, Elohoyich, Kimsos Chosana Hakala, Lai, 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 Lechadoyiti Likras Kala, Penei Shabbos Nekabala, Lechadoyiti Likras Kala, Penei Shabbos nekabala. Lai lai, lai lai, lai lai, lai lai, lai lai. Yami musmo, tifrahotzi, v'yes Adonai atavitzi. Lai lai, lai lai, lai lai, lai lai, al yadish. Ben pahatzi, v'hanismecha v'nogi elai. Lechadoyeti likras kala. Penei Shabbos nekabala. Lechadoyeti likras kala. Penei Shabbos nekabala. La 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 la. Hey, boy, the shalom. Ateres bahala. Gaham besimcha uvetzahala. Ha ha ha. Yai 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 yai. Tochem uhune. Am segula. Boi chala, hey, lechadoyeti likras kala, penei Shabbos nekabala, lechadoyeti likras kala, penei Shabbos nekabala. Okay, right. I'm just going to do a little request. Page 432. I'm going to do the Exodus theme to putting the ark, taking the Sefer Torah back into the ark. And I like to do this particular one. I like to do it if I'm in the shul. I like to do this theme, the Exodus theme, specifically on the Shabbat, the last Shabbat or the week before, because it's the Exodus. So let me do that. I'm going to do it. Here we go. Page 432 in our Sidurim. Lama chazikim bo. V'som che'hameyu shah teracheh taracheh anoyam v'chol nesivoy seha shalom Hashim V'yanu Hashem Eilecha v'noshuva Chadesh Yameinu kekedem Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. So Danny,
Yeah.
You said it's Andrew Gold's dad.
Yeah, Andrew Gold's a singer. It was his father, Ernest Gold, who wrote the Exodus theme.
I love that theme. I do. I love it. Okay, thank you so much. That's lovely. Okay, Stuart Lee, I want to wish you, Stuart, and Mum, Adrian, I want to wish you both Chaim Aruchim. I think in the past week, if I'm not